Hey everyone, I'm Emily and welcome to my podcast, A DIY Lifestyle. If you're like me, and I know I am, I love exploring my creative side by doing crafts and projects. There's just so much joy that comes out of doing something yourself instead of just going to the store and buying it. I hope that my posts inspire you to tap into your inner crafter and see what you can create. Let's see what we'll be working on today. Today I will show you how I refinished this desk to make it look like this. All I did was add some paint, some new hardware, and distressed it to give it an antique look. I'm going to give you a step-by-step process on how you can do the same. To do this, the supplies you will need are paint. I used a satin white color, a paint stick to stir the paint, a paint can opener. I also use spray paint for this, a satin white, a paintbrush. Don't be cheap with the paintbrush. You'll thank yourself later for spending a few extra dollars. I like the ones with the short handles because I have a little more control over the brush. But whatever you think will be best for you, go with that. You'll also need sandpaper. I used a 220 grit for the distressing, and some sort of cloth to clean it before you start painting it. If the piece has hardware on it, like this one does, you will need a screwdriver to remove that before you start painting. I also put down old sheets and towels just to make it a little more clean. And a protective face mask while you're sanding or spray painting is also a good idea to have. Here's a helpful tip. If you'd like to refinish a piece of furniture but don't have anything laying around the house, there are some places you can look. Goodwill is always a great place. They have furniture such as tables and chairs and smaller things that you can pick up for a pretty low cost. Another location is Habitat for Humanity Restore. They have a larger selection of furniture and other household items that people donate. And again, you can pick them up for a pretty low cost. These are always my go-to places as they are open year-round. During the summer, I like to look at garage sales and rummage sales because people will usually sell things for, again, a pretty low cost. I've even picked things up off the curb that people were going to throw away, and I brought them home and were able to refinish them and turn them into something pretty awesome. So, let's get started. Step 1. I always take a picture of what I'm refinishing before I start. This way I can look back and remember what it looked like, and then I can admire it that much more when it's all finished. Then you're going to want to remove all of the hardware, if there is any. I always recommend saving the hardware before you get rid of it all, because sometimes you'll find that the new hardware you purchase, because they come with screws, and sometimes those screws won't fit in the spot that you're putting them, and so you will actually have to use the old screws to replace the new ones. So I always save everything just in the event that I may have to go back and use it. Step 3, we're going to wipe the whole piece clean before we start painting. You can either use a tack cloth or even just a damp rag to get all of the dust and dirt and cobwebs off of it before you start spray painting, because nobody wants a dead bug painted to their furniture. Step 4. Now it's time to spray paint. Now this isn't something you have to do, but this desk had a bit of a glossy finish to it, and so the spray painting, all it's really doing is making the surface a little more rough so that when I do paint, the paint will stick a little better. You can achieve the same outcome just by taking sandpaper and sanding the surface a little bit just to roughen it up. The spray painting I just do because it's inexpensive and it only takes about 30 minutes or so for it to dry, and it also kind of cuts down on the painting because I'm already catching a lot of those areas with the spray paint. So this is just a step that I like to do, but it's definitely not necessary. Once the spray paint is dry, it's time to paint. Before you do so, you want to make sure that the paint is stirred up very well, and if the paint has been sitting for a while, make sure you stir it from the bottom to get all there's going to be like probably clumps of paint, so get that stirred up really well, otherwise you won't really have a thick paint. Then you can take your brush dip it in the paint and just do nice even strokes across whatever surface you want to start with. Now remember, you don't want to use a lot of paint because you will do at least 2 coats, if not 3. It just all depends on what type of wood you're painting on. If it's a very dry wood, this paint is going to soak in and you will have to do a couple of coats. So just start with less and then you can always add more. And then you also want to make sure that you paint with the grain, because once the paint dries, you are going to be able to see all the brush marks going all different directions. So if you paint with the grain, it's just all going one way and it will look much nicer in the end. Once the painting is completed, I usually wait at least 24 to 48 hours before I move on to the next step, which is distressing. You want to make sure that the paint is fully dry before you start sanding it away, otherwise it's all just going to peel right off and you will not get the look that you want to achieve. Now we've arrived at the final step, which I think is the most enjoyable, the distressing. Remember, this is what's going to add the most character to the piece. It's going to make it look old, and it's just going to add the finishing touch. And this is the part that you can do however you want. There's no right or wrong way to do it, and I will show you the technique that I use. So this is where you will need that 220 grit sandpaper, and basically all you're going to start doing is sanding away at the edges of the piece. So for this desk, it would be, out the top of the desk, and I'm just going to take my sandpaper and I'm going to start brushing it on the corners, and you'll notice that the paint will start to peel away. Now if this is the first time you're doing this, I would start with less, and then if you want to add a little more, then you start sanding more. But it's always easier to continue sanding than it is to realize you've done too much and you want to go back and fix it. So just start with small sections and work your way up. You can continue this on the side of the desk, and then all the drawers and any other areas that you would like to distress, just go ahead and do. That's the beauty of it. You can do whatever you want. Once you think you've achieved the look that you are going for, the distressing is complete, and now all we have to do is add the hardware. On the left, you will see the old hardware, and on the right, you will see what I am replacing it with. I tried to go with something that still looked a little old, and it's not going to be too obnoxious on the desk because I did just go with a white color. Now all we have to do is add all the new handles, and just remember, if the screws that came with the new ones don't fit, you should still have the old ones that you can use as a replacement. Worst case scenario, the old ones will not match up with the size of the new ones, and then unfortunately you will probably have to go to the hardware store and find the right size screw, but I've never come into that problem, so just keep in mind that there usually is always a solution. You may just have to take a few additional steps. And once you've done that, the desk is now complete, and you can bring it inside and add it to your decor, and it is ready to use. Now this is just one of many techniques that you can do to refinish a piece of furniture. But I hope that you were able to follow along with my video and you do give it a try, because it truly is amazing what you can do to an old piece of furniture that you maybe we're going to throw away, but save it and give it a whole new look, and you can enjoy it for much longer. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to my channel for many more DIY tutorials. I'm Emily, and this is a DIY Lifestyle.